I'm Garrett McQueen.
I'm Scott Blankenship.
And this is TRILLOQUY, true and real stories from the fringes of classical music. Feeling good today, Scott?
I'm feeling great today. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good.
You had to be up early, though.
I had to be up early, despite all of the, I'll say, cupcakes we enjoyed last night. No, we're allowed to say that we drink, right?
That happens.
How are my martini shaking skills? How would you rate me?
I'm really disappointed that I've been drinking vermouth for this long.
Well, some people,
because yours were better.
Well, some people like drinking the actual vermouth, but I just season the ice with the vermouth. You know, something I learned in my days of bartending. Being an artist oftentimes includes working in the service industry or some outside music job. So, you know, I spent many years being a bartender, and shaking a really nice martini is one of the things I learned along the way. Even though you like vodka, I mean, I'm not that guy. I'm a gin person. You like it dirty. So the kinds of martinis you drink are just a little below me, I'll say. but I'm glad that I can shake a good one for you.
But you've turned me on to gin, though.
Yeah.
I guess I was just drinking the wrong gin.
Maybe.
Or maybe it was a bad bartender, because that can ruin somebody's perspective.
Well, when you talk about gin, you know, there are, you know, when I was a bartender, I used to say there's no such thing as house gin or well gin.
Right.
Up here they say rail. There's no such thing as rail gin, because it takes so much care to get a nice bottle of gin onto the store counter. You might as well buy one that you know is going to be nice. And none of these gin brands are writing me a check for shouting them out, so I won't.
Right.
But I have favorites. Well, if you're listening next time you're in St. Paul, you want to pay me a visit, I'll tell you what kind of gin I think is the best.
Fair enough.
And that gin and the vodka in your case helped a few of the conversations get a little loud at one point.
Isn't it interesting how those things facilitate that?
In vino veritas, as they say.
Yes, correct.
You mentioned what? Okay, let's just go there. What movie did you mention? And you got a line from it that kind of got me upset for a little bit.
The Commitments.
Okay, so there's this scene in that movie where some Irish guys, they're from Ireland, right?
They're in Dublin.
They're looking at a James Brown video, and eventually the conversation gets to, oh, well, we're the black people of Ireland. And that sounds innocent enough to a lot of people, but for me, I was upset because
I could tell.
You're equating blackness with oppression. Like, can you not understand why I would instantly be upset at something like that?
The fact that you saw that 30-second clip, yeah, I could see where you got there. And my point about when things, as you said, started to get a little bit loud, my point was that you don't have to go back very far in history to find evidence that English people have oppressed the Irish and the Scottish for centuries.
And my point was that white-on-white crime has nothing to do with black Americans. Why are you pulling us into that and comparing us to the oppressed people?
Okay, first off, I didn't do it. They did it in the movie.
I'm not blaming you, okay?
Okay, but
and this is how we got loud last night. I'm not indicting you, Scott.
But my question is, what is the problem with using it? Help me understand where the problem with using that metaphor lies.
Because, all right, let's say that let's say me and my boyfriend separate. Something very unfortunate happens, and I'm walking around here trying to find a date. I come in and I say, man, whenever I go out, I feel like I'm the Scott Blankenship of the bar. You wouldn't like that, would you? That would be inappropriate, me equating being single to who you are, because you have nothing to do with my relationship status, just as black Americans and the black diaspora has nothing to do with with English oppression of Irish people. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's the same it's the same reason why we don't say, "Oh, that's so gay." Why are you equating something bad or something distasteful or something you don't like with a person's sexual preference? That was my only point.
Okay, so okay, thank you, and I understand that. But do you also understand how that metaphor can be powerful for a white person?
I can understand how that metaphor is powerful for a white person
Should we?
as far as acknowledging that inside of that powerful moment is intrinsic racism, is an inherently racist statement. That's where I feel like people get lost. So if you disagree with me, too bad. Because
But that also led to the conversation about that whole time frame as far as movies were concerned. We started talking about John Hughes movies,
yeah,
your 16 Candles, your Pretty in Pink,
right.
these sorts of things, where all of this was just sort of normalized, and we accepted it and loved it as part of our experience growing up. Because in the mid to late 80s, that is where, I would have been 15 to 20 years old in that time frame, and that's an impressionable time.
Yeah, yeah,
And so now to turn around and look at it and have the realization that that was wrong, it is that I think is a great the perfect example of cognitive dissonance. That
yeah.
you're confronted with something that conflicts with everything that you grew up with, and you don't want to go, oh well, I'm a piece of crap then. Because,
Let's go back to a previous conversation we were having. So we were talking about my being a bartender. The last bartender job I had, I was actually fired from. The only time I was fired from a job in my life so far, anyway. And and I was let go because I said behind the bar, racist language and racist activities are an intrinsic part of what it means to be white in America. And what you're telling me right now validates me, because what you're saying is, as a teenager, this very impressionable time in your life, this movie that played such an important part of your the way you consume media or whatever is intrinsically racist, at least from my perspective. And this is a celebrated film, among so many people. So how can you tell me that you can celebrate racism and also be separate from the structure of racism in this country? Does that make sense?
it does,
That's
but
what I'm saying. That's
yeah,
all I'm saying.
and I don't know how to respond.
I
Is
mean,
the thing.
for me, the response is, as the late Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better. That's not the exact quote, but that's all it is. Acknowledging the power structures at play and how that affects media. We talk about music, and everything else. We really have to take a step back and consider the problems that so much of this media intrinsically has, and that of course includes classical music and the culture surrounding classical music. From my perspective, those power structures manifest today in the way we're expected to, and when I say we, I mean black people or other people of color, the way we're expected to sort of behave in certain environments. And here in a few minutes, you're going to hear from Katie and Dalanie, who I interviewed back in February, and one of the when I invited them to up to my hotel room for us to record this audio, one of the first questions they asked was this. So I invited y'all up here, and before y'all came up here, I think Katie, you were like, "So how trifling are we allowed to be?" I want to know why that's
Okay. One of the main themes in your interview is code switching, right?
yeah.
Okay, so now for people who have heard the term and they don't have a firm grasp on it, code switching is.
So I guess colloquially speaking, I would call code switching the difference between your street voice and your job interview voice.
Okay.
Or just kind of shaping your affect or the way you communicate based on who you're communicating with, based on sort of systemic rules and unspoken guidelines when it comes to what's quote unquote professional, what works for the workplace, and
Okay.
and that's something that black folk definitely have to deal with all the time when it comes to speech and appearance. I wear dreadlocks, and there have been jobs that I've been turned away from because they were asking me to cut my hair, and I didn't want to do that. And being a black classical musician, that whole conversation is augmented because we're in spaces that are predominantly white. We come from spaces, for the most part, as far as family and culture and all that, that are predominantly black. So
Hmm.
when those two worlds come together, and you acknowledge the power structures there, black folks, myself included, kind of get into, this automatic thing where we have to sort of clean up our affect, or make sure our hair is pulled back, or, make sure we're dressed, beyond reproach of, do you belong here or whatever.
Hmm.
And recently that conversation has been changed and said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to code switch. We're not going to change ourselves for your own comfort. And yeah, and that clip that you played goes right into that, but when someone hears that, I work for American Public Media and I want to interview them, the first
Right.
thought is, okay, well, let me make sure that I'm not, being offensive. Let me make sure that
When in
I'm
reality, you want to capture them being their real self.
right. And so that's kind of why I asked them that question, like, where does that come from? Because, I don't know about you, but I want the organization we work for to be seen as one that's open and inclusive, and where a person can be themselves, because that's certainly, what I do and what I'm sure you do. But that
For
public
better or worse.
but yeah, but that public, perception, and not just with us, but just media organizations across the board, kind of live in that space of, okay, I need to, get my together before I go and talk to these people.
Have you ever done that with me?
Have I ever code switch with you? I'll be honest. When I was first meeting you, I have to feel a person out, and know what they're about, and you know so to an extent, maybe so. I don't think I code switch at this point. I hope you
No.
don't.
No.
Oh, you know for a fact that you're getting the real deal.
I don't feel like you are, is what
Okay.
I'm saying. What else about your conversation with Katie and Dalanie stuck out for you? What pay dirt did you hit and think, okay, now this is good conversation where we need to be.
Well, yeah, we did talk a lot about code switching, but we also talked a little bit about cancel culture.
Mm.
If you're familiar with that, so
That I am, because the R. Kelly business is going on,
I
right?
mean, R. Kelly, Garrison Keeler. I
Yeah.
mean, the list goes on and on. So, people getting exposed and caught up in, their bad behavior, and just being kind of socially canceled. Like, we're not listening to their music, we're not following them on social media. And how we don't apply that to many of the composers we listen to all the time. So the first name that people will say is Wagner, but the stories go well beyond that. I think me, Katie, and Delaney talked about Debussy,
Oh,
about how
yeah.
how he was a womanizer, and
Yep.
and and cheating on his wife. They bring up a composer named Carlo Gesualdo, who was like some sort of serial killer way back in the. I think he was one of those Renaissance composers, and he was,
I've had his music on my
yeah.
playlist.
I mean,
Debussy all the time, and I love Debussy.
and the problem is, I feel nervous about talking about these things without, like, the fact sheet sitting right in
Yep.
front of me,
Yeah.
because these composers have been put up on such a high pedestal that, they're the way we have revised their lives historically is more important and more significant, and in many cases more accurate than the facts we kind of know, but haven't taken the time to really insert into the classical music zeitgeist, if you will. And it's all really interesting conversation. So we talked a little bit about that as well.
Is cancel culture valid for you? I mean, do you agree with that happening? Like, if, let's say, R. Kelly goes to prison or is exonerated, do you agree with not playing his music on the radio or not having his albums available in stores?
Well, I think that's a very specific situation, because no one who abuses children, which he did, and which he's been proven, of being guilty of, based on witness accounts and videotape
Yeah.
and all that stuff. I don't think we should be listening to him as much as I believe that I can fly, and as much as I love to step in the name of love, or whatever his other hit songs were, getting in my car and cranking it up and hearing the remix to Ignition, whatever.
Sure.
Um,
Can you
he has abused children. So for me, I don't feel comfortable celebrating him. But one that was a little more difficult for folks, specifically black people, was Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
That
was hard.
That was a tough one because you just didn't want to believe that he would do something like that. But
Of course not.
but that goes back to believing women, believing their stories, and I did. So. I don't watch the Bill Cosby show. Not that I really was anyway, but we have to believe women, and we have to put their stories ahead of our perceptions of the men they're accusing, I think.
Is there anything else about your conversation that stood out, or should we just get to it?
A lot of great stuff. Again, they host a podcast called Classically Black. We talk a little bit about that. We talk about what they're doing over at the Eastman School of Music. They're both students there, and sort of that dynamic. We talked a little bit about their upbringing. I believe Dalanie is from Southern California. She's from not too far from where I lived when I was over there, and just a lot of really great conversations. They're so fun to talk with. I think they represent, again, sort of that fringe of classical music. You don't see or hear young women like them every day. And I think it was a really great conversation that we should just go ahead and jump right into. Okay, so let's get in it. So I invited y'all up here, and before y'all came up here, I think, Katie, you were like, so how trifling are we allowed to be? I want to know why that's a question. Why? Well, I know why that's a question, but I kind of want to dig into why that's something as black folks got to always explore. It's like we code switch ourselves depending on, who we're presenting ourselves in front of.
Okay, so you mentioned code switching, and that's funny because I told Dalanie, like, I don't really do that anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would say there's a time and place, right? There's always a time and place. Like, I'm not gonna go, like, for example, in my lesson with my teacher. I don't go in there and be like, "Hey, yo, so," you know what I'm saying? Like, help me. That's because he's older than me. Yeah. He's a professional. I'm a professional. It's like there's time and place. But that, like, white voice that I had in high school when I was in AP classes, and I felt like my blackness wasn't good enough for people. Like, I stopped doing that. Mm-hmm. Like, I literally what you see with me is what you get. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll say, you know what I'm saying? When I'm talking to whomever,
right.
Because there's a time and place. I'm not gonna roll up on my grandma and be like, "Hey, yo, so." My grandma lit. Like, my grandma, she cooler than me. She like, "So why are you hanging out with me when this party's going on?" I'm like, "Let me be me." But this whole code switching thing, like, honestly, when I met Katie, like, I'm like low-key from the hood, but I still do that code switching thing.
But what's low-key from the hood?
Like, I mean, my mom tried to, like, sort of push me, like, out of just being in that all the time. Mm-hmm. Especially, like, I changed middle schools to, like, go in a whole different I'm from Inglewood, California.
Shout out Inglewood. When I went to grad school at USC, and I lived in Baldwin Hills.
Oh, okay.
And everyone used to call it the good hood.
Yeah, it is. That's where all the black doctors and lawyers go.
Yeah, I love living
like
there.
Dare Heights, yeah.
But anyway, Inglewood.
Yeah, but that's where I'm from. And in 7th grade, my mom was like, we're going to try to find you, like, a whole different setup. Like, so we didn't move, but I was, taking a bus 2.5 hours to get to school. Dang. Yeah, and that kind of stuff. But so the code switching thing was, like, very real for me. And last year at Sphinx, we were in a session, and you studied with Lacolian, right?
Oh yeah, shout out Lacolian, Washington.
Right. He was talking about code switching and how how much of a big deal it is for people to have to, like, turn themselves off in certain situations. And Katie was like, "That's why I don't do it." and I was like,
It literally never ever occurred to me just to not do it.
So, and just so we make sure that we're not leaving anybody behind, how would y'all define code switching? What is code switching?
What is it?
I changed the tone of voice that I use, the inflection. I'm very like, I just make sure that I always seem welcoming and like very, I don't know, like professional all the time.
Spoken,
And see,
Yeah.
you say welcoming, but I think really what you mean is non-threatening.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
Like not looking mad all the time.
Yeah, I can't, like, my face is never, like, I feel very buttoned up. Like, I'm not at ease at all.
You might like talk like this, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Your customer service voice,
Your
basically.
customer service voice.
Yeah.
Job interview accent.
Yeah.
It seems like that's, a particular challenge for, those of us who are black and in classical music. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to code switch for nobody either, but I'm also, it's difficult for me to think about raising my hand in a rehearsal and like, yo, maestro, measure
Yeah,
57.
that's what I was talking about, like the time and place. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna be like, hey, yo, Moody, so that's Bowen, ain't it?
Right,
You know, it's
what's
like
good with this?
What's
my
good?
homie Moody, the big homie
Listen.
Ricardo.
The part we just passed. Oh, what you mean?
That
part.
joint.
That joint ain't. We gotta do that again. Like, it's a time and a place, but I don't change my voice anymore. You know what I'm saying? I have like a voice. If I was in an interview, I might speak like this. You know, I'm talking to you, I might speak like this. But this is not very far from how I speak to my friends. It's because I just got so tired of like I can't. And the thing is, I can't even show you. I can't find that white voice if I put it in Google Maps. I have no idea where it went because it's like I was just so tired of like changing myself. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I'm good enough the way I am. Like I can say, and it's also like this stigma, like just because you might not pronounce all your words and like you might have a little twang to your voice, like you're uneducated, you're not good enough. Like no, I play the viola, I play it well, and like. I listen to Cardi B and I talk like this, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I just got so tired of that. I'm grown now. You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like I don't care. And the people who want you there, they'll respect that. There's professors that listen to us speak. I speak like this in class. I'm in graduate seminars. Music education seminar. I speak like this in class. So it's just like I don't know. But the reason why I asked about the trifling thing is because
Back to that.
you over making here at NPR, whatever, like Garrett upper echelon.
Right.
He been
no.
He got my producer. It is
my producer.
Like
producer.
Shout out Scott Blankenship.
And
Listen.
he been in orchestra. He up here. So I'm not gonna get on here like, hey, so what's good? You know what I'm saying?
but you can joke around and say all that, but one of my challenges is that I never really get to have a lot of the conversations I want to have because we aren't in the positions that I'm in. Like
Yeah,
sometimes I feel like shoot. Well, what if BET do they need a classical department or
I mean,
what's
could.
up?
I mean, we're available.
We're available. BET, hire us, please.
I mean, of course, I love my organization, but just the fact of the matter is that it's just mostly white,
Right.
And it seems like we're just now getting to the point to where we feel comfortable acknowledging that at all. I mean, and when I think about the canon of classical composers is becoming for me more and more difficult to just cape for so many of these men whose music is what it is, but if you look at their life, it's some nonsense.
It's
And
some absolute nonsense.
Absolute.
it looked like y'all got something in mind.
I mean,
Have you seen?
have you seen Guess Waldo? He was a literal serial
He
killer.
was a serial killer, and he was crazy.
Ooh, what? No, hold
You
on.
ain't hear about Guess Waldo?
Guess Waldo?
Guess Waldo. What's his whole full name? Guess Waldo. I forgot his first name.
Yeah.
The madrigalist. He was like in the 1500s. Like
Carlo.
Carlo.
Carlo
Guess Waldo.
Y'all going way back to the 1500s.
Because,
Wait
okay,
a minute.
because we
well,
went
y'all
to-
string players.
I mean, but
Right.
madrigals. But I tell you, I do like a good madrigal sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes they go. But
They be moving.
sometimes.
Give,
I must have missed that one.
at your recital, you'd be like, "Look, this madrigal finna be moving."
It's probably about to be lit. I go see. But guess Waldo? Okay, boom. So
Boom, check it.
guess Waldo, he was writing all this stuff, but he found out his wife was cheating on him. So he like went out. He's like, okay, bet I'm finna go. I think he was gonna go hunting or something, and he like whatever left like the door open or whatever. So his wife get in there with her boot thing, and they start. And then he come in.
Dang.
He come in there with a shotgun, shoots her and my dude, and then And then he takes off the 90 of her and puts it on him. Now he was trifling.
He was crazy.
Literally crazy.
And did he put him on a doorstep too for everybody to see? And he was like royalty, so he like literally just got away.
He just got away with it.
And what you gonna do back in 15, whatever, call 911? Then you gotta send a messenger pigeon. And
right.
And then 3 to 7 days later,
they plop up on their llama. It's not even going.
I mean, but even if you move, more forward, y'all mentioned Debussy earlier. Mm-hmm. I understand he was like, running trains on women and
Debussy
stuff.
Was trash.
He had his wife who he was just being terrible to. He was cheating on her the whole time. He was like, oh, why don't you go visit your mama and them? And he put her on a train to do that, then went on vacation with somebody else.
Right.
I'd be damned.
Also, he didn't even like her voice. What was the quote? I can't even remember the quote. He was like, her voice sounds like screeching. Like, he was trash. And then he ran, says, first of all, he was cheating on something because he was a womanizer from the beginning. He was out here, like, literally just out here. And then the girl he was with, she was like, to Lily, the girl was like, Lily, don't do it. Debussy ain't it. She still say, I do, like an idiot. Like, you don't have to go through it to learn from it.
Exactly. She was like, sis, I'm coming to you as a woman. Like, do not do it. And
woman to woman.
Woman to woman. Don't do it. Did it anyway. What you end up doing now? You putting a bullet through your face. And they survived. Now you got to live the rest of your life with a bullet because it's like, what, Debussy? What is it, late 1800s? Who going in there taking that bullet out? Nobody.
Nope.
Yeah. So now you have a bullet. And then after all that, he runs off with somebody else.
Yeah.
Trash.
I mean, not to say that all the composers were trash, but sometimes sometimes we miss out on the real stories of these folks because they are the greats.
And they're held up on pedestals because for whatever reason we still playing Wagner.
I was just about to say that people are still programming Wagner.
Especially in this time when we just played Die Meister's.
And people bring up Wagner all the time, but in my book, it was Strauss that was the real problematic one.
We have to, and we will be researching that.
Yeah,
and he wasn't. And I'm sure the fact checker's gonna get me, but like from what I remember is he wasn't like a Nazi himself, and as a matter of fact, he had like Jewish family members, but he was just going along with all of it just to keep his folks safe, which. In one regard is like, well, he checking out for his peoples, but on the other hand, dang, I mean, look at everybody else that has died, thanks to your complicity.
Exactly. And Martin Luther King said it best. Y'all the ones who are the worst ones, the ones who just be, well, that's just the way it is, and they just gonna take you to a campus, and that's just how we doing it. And those are the complacent people are the worst ones. You just going around with it. Now millions of Jews have died thanks to you, not thanks to you. Thanks, Strauss. Thanks for your waltzes and killings. Nah, but you know what I'm saying? Like complacent people, So it's like it's like a double.
Yeah. And then, when I think about, the composers of the past in this Me Too era, I feel like, we ought to give more of the women composers, shout outs and their time in the spotlight. Maybe a week ago or something on my show, I had the Clara Schumann piano concerto, and that jam was kind of lit to me. And it's just a piece we don't listen to all the time or perform all the time because, in many ways it seems like she lives in the shadow of her husband, Rob.
Meanwhile,
and that name is like cursed these days. Who gonna be the next person named their child Rob? Well, it's probably gonna be some folks.
It's probably gonna be a book.
But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. So anyway, this podcast is about telling some of the stories and getting some of the perspectives of people in classical music that you don't always hear from or that you may not think of as classical musicians, but we come in all different types. And the two of you have really ran with that idea by creating your own podcast, Classically Black. What inspired that? Where did that come from?
Well, Katie came to our friend group. We have like a Facebook group with like a bunch of our friends met at Gateways and Sphinx and a bunch of Black classical musicians, and was like, we should start a podcast. Because like me and Katie both listen to The Read and like a couple other podcasts.
Dang, I love The Read.
Oh my gosh, The Read.
Shout out to The Read.
Shout out to Read.
Shout out to that theme music. And I wonder how many people would turn that on and not know what that's from.
Right.
Because it's Sister Act 2, right?
Right, Sister Act 2.
Shout out to all the nuns and all the everybody that helped make that possible.
When I first got into The Read and they played I started it and I was like, oh yeah, this is it. Because I was like, where is this going? And the beat dropped. I was like, oh okay.
Right.
But anyway, you say listening to other podcasts kind of inspired you to,
Yeah, because Katie was like, so let's start a podcast, and some people are on board, some people are like, I don't know if I got time for that. So it really started with like a bunch of other people, and it slowly but surely narrowed down, and we had like all these things like, oh, we're gonna release on this day, we're gonna release on this day, and eventually it dwindled down to me and Katie, who have a great rapport with each other.
Yeah, it's great.
And we were just like, listen, we've been talking about this for too long. Let's just go ahead and try to
and get it on wax, as they say.
But it was something that we really needed, especially like going to a predominantly white school and just being in classical music, just the field in general is predominantly white. And so we were like, we need, first of all, we need visibility for Black musicians. We need people to know that, hey, we exist, like we're here, we always have been, always will be. And second of all, with visibility comes like, we're not just here, but we're also here, and we're being like, we're doing Black things. Like we're not like, a lot of people feel like they have to water themselves down.
Right.
And we're like, we're not doing that
code
here.
switch, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're like, we're not doing that here. So not only are we in this field, but we're in this field being ourselves, and that's okay, But what do you?
Also, Dalanie and I met.
Oh my gosh, this is one of the main. This is ridiculous.
We met at Sphinx last year.
Not until last year at Sphinx?
Not until we got to our school. She was at school?
Go and shout out the school. It's fine.
Shout out to the Eastman School of Music.
Oh,
Shout out to
Eastman.
Go
Stand
Yellow
up.
Jackets, Meliora.
585, stand up. But we met.
Why y'all lobby look like a bank, by the way?
Okay, first of all, we not finna do it.
Oh, dang it, Loki do. I'm not even
Eddie doing the teller thing. Dang.
See, I wouldn't even think about the teller up front, but yeah, y'all got a teller.
Literally do.
Like the info desk with the teller.
Oh my
Now
God.
see, every time I go in there, I'm be like, this look like a bank. Eastman really thought he was doing something when he designed it.
But shout out to Eastman. Like some of the world's best have walked those halls and those practice rooms, and here y'all go right here.
And Dalanie Harris. So anyway, we got to Eastman the same year, 2016. I didn't meet her till 2018 at Sphinx. Because we went through this thing where like Black people at Eastman weren't really talking to each other, and it's like
what
walking past each other,
walking past each other,
not saying nothing.
Y'all
anything.
petty.
And the thing is, like, no. Anyway, we won't get into that because this is not the time or place. But
no, get into it. We here.
because I looked at Dalanie.
No, we've had this argument on our podcast like at least 2 or 3 times.
Garrett, let me tell you what happened, right? So it literally happened. So I was walking to class. Dalanie, I live in an apartment because whatever, I'm a grad student. So Dalanie was walking into the student living center, and I'm walking. I'm like, "There's a Black girl that goes." It's like October. It's like, "Oh, there's a Black girl that goes here." Oh, look, I didn't even know that. This is how I view Eastman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, so I smile. Whatever. I'm from the Midwest. We smile at people. So I smile. Dalanie looks the other way. Goes into the SO.
No, I would. You know what? Something that I know about myself, I would never ever do that. I'm like, I probably did my version of a smile, which can be just like whatever. Because on my passport photo, I thought I was smiling. I literally looked like
she's
a
about to do 5 to 10.
Now, of course, Dalanie got to flex a little bit and let everybody know that she be traveling international.
I have 2 stamps on my passport.
No.
Two more than a lot of people, though.
Yeah, that's true.
And a passport.
That's true. But I did not do that.
Whatever. So I was like, so this is what it is. Like and especially like in my undergrad, I was like the only Black person in my program. So it was like,
And where was that?
Illinois State University.
Okay, shout out to them.
Yes, 309. Go Redbirds. So when I was like, okay, so this is what classical music is. This is Black people being more comfortable talking with their instruments than talking to each other. And I guess you don't want to be seen talking to the only other black person in the room. And I'm like, this kind of...
Why not, though?
Exactly.
I think people are embarrassed by
love
it. But meanwhile, like, I go in the room, I'm like, so...
Right.
Like,
Right. Where my people at?
But it's like, I guess people are embarrassed to be seen talking to the only black person in the room because it's like, of course they're talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
They bet not. Okay, well, this is a public service announcement to everybody black at music school. If you have a black colleague, somebody that's in school with you, go be they friends.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like honestly, because it's like, imagine, and then I did a festival. I did Gateways.
Shout out to Lee Kuntz because he's the
I
founder
love
of
him.
Gateways, or not the founder, but
The executive
the
director,
executive director. And like he one of the like wokest people you'll ever meet.
Listen,
if
I
you
love
like,
Lee.
if you sit down and talk to him for
Yeah.
15 minutes, you be ready to pick your afro out.
Man, Lee, I love Lee.
But anyway, Gateways.
I met at Gateways and I was like, this is not classical music. Like this is not what we're doing. Like so then after that we were like, okay, so what are we doing? Like I went to Dalanie as Sphinx. I'm like, so we go to the same school. What are we doing? And then we started talking to each other. And then people we used to walk past Richard, not say nothing. Now we hang around with Richard like all the time. It's like and then Dalanie was like, let's have a black student union at Eastman.
Oh, dope! And y'all put that together, and that's a thing now.
Yeah, we just got established like Students Association recognized this year, and we're doing a concert for Black History Month. All black composers, all black musicians at Eastman, and there are so many people that are like, wow, I really wanted this, and this is exactly what we need, but just never did it. And I'm like, and me and Katie are sitting around like we hanging out in her apartment. We're like, we have to bring other people into
other
this.
people could be here with us. And now we do spades night. I learned how to play spades at Eastman. You know what I'm saying?
How many people can say that?
Who can say that?
Me too.
But which Joker's the big Joker though?
See, listen, now you're not gonna listen. Like, I only played once and I forgot. But Richard taught me.
The big Joker, and this, I know this is controversial in the black community. The big Joker is the Joker that's color. Because one is, in my cars, one be black and white and one be color. The color Joker is the big Joker. But a lot of folk think the Joker with the instructions on it is the big Joker.
Oh, we haven't gotten to that level yet, but can we just table this conversation and then...
But for now. So we were mentioning the Gateways Festival, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that don't know what that is. So, that's a week-long thing where black classical musicians from around the world, come together and play music and kiki and do all
Literally
that.
kiki.
Oh my goodness.
How is, it, you'll have a lot of people that'll be like, well, classical music supersedes everything and, it rises above. But at the end of the day, the Gateways Festival is all black and it just feels a little different,
Absolutely.
First of all, like, when I was in Gateways, I have yet to take orchestra yet at Eastman because grad students are only required to take 1 year. So I was already at Eastman for a year. I was like, okay. So I did Gateways, and I was in my school, and I was on Kodak stage, and we're playing Rachmaninoff with like an amazing pianist, and I feel like the stage is lifting, and like I've never been in an orchestra that sounds like that. And I'm not talking about like, of course, like CSO sounds great and Boston Symphony. I'm not talking about like black people with like an incredible amount of soul, an incredible amount of like history.
And shout out Stuart Goodyear who was playing piano.
Man, I'll tell you, my edges were receding. I was like,
Ed just looking where are my
where my
edges?
edges?
Right.
Like, where are the edges? It's just like you listen to a recording, it sounds even better than it felt on stage.
Yeah.
I've never, and I still have yet to feel that, since I've been in that Gateways Orchestra. Like, it just feels like absolutely amazing. And everyone's playing with like all the passion they got, and it's like, it was just incredible. And it was like, I wish it always felt like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish, and the way we sound, everything's all now seasoned and like marinated.
Well seasoned.
Seasoned.
Yeah.
Like salt, pepper, some more stuff.
Yeah.
That's the base seasoning. You need like,
Yeah,
you need the stuff after that, like the
exactly.
Lorries.
Right,
and
yeah,
the,
put a little paprika in there
you
at
might
the
do
top.
some lemon pepper.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Garlic powder?
Garlic powder.
No, heavy hand with the garlic powder.
Depending what the doctor says, some garlic salt.
Y'all don't do the little... Excuse me, see, I have my mouth watering thinking about it. Yeah, y'all don't do the Lowrys.
You have to do the Lorries, you know what I'm saying?
But y'all remember what happened at that Gateways performance? Like
that was devastating.
And I
to me.
want to go into that for a minute because so at that performance, it looked like there was students from this black school, predominantly black school, there to see this black orchestra do their thing. And I mean, they just was cutting up, and like the performance had to stop midway through. I had never experienced
I've
that in my
never
life.
experienced that.
I
And
could
like
not believe my eyes.
that they were all escorted off. And like the space I found myself in is, are we the snobs now? Are we the ones who don't care about, the black youth for kicking them out of this well, we didn't kick them out, but
Right.
I mean, what do y'all think about that whole conversation? It's real touchy for me. I don't know, because there are people there that are trying to enjoy that concert,
Right.
but like, what does it mean for black youth to just not be interested enough in it to not start cutting up and disrupt the concert?
I think that one of the things, like, I don't think that we are the snobs for that, because it comes from a place of, like, for me, it was a place of, like, disappointment.
Yeah.
And, like,
Yeah.
Sort of like, wow, I really can't believe that happened. Because I know some people were probably angry and irritated, like, why would they do that? They don't know anything, whatever. And I think it's more of a place of, like, no one has really demonstrated to them the importance of why, or like the reason why something like Gateways is important, the value that something like Gateways gives.
Yeah.
Because Katie and I work at an El Sistema inspired program in Rochester, and
dope.
we were looking at like some of the ways that students treat instruments, and I'm like, no one has really told this student this is valuable. Not only is it monetarily valuable, but like it's a valuable thing to be able to hold an instrument, to play an instrument. It's valuable knowledge that you're receiving. So I think that that's sort of like something that a lot of black children maybe they don't have access to.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's part of the reason why that happened. And I know that it's amazing for people to see black people on stage like at Gateways, and that's something that I definitely would have been would have needed to see when I was growing up as a musician. But at that point I was already playing the bass. I was already in orchestra, and I already sort of liked it and whatever. But when kids are coming from a place where they only play their instrument 1 or 2 times a week, or they haven't really found their groove in it, they don't think they're good at it yet, I feel like that sort of education aspect of like, this is really something that could help you, this is something that you could do, and this is something that could take you places in life, would have really helped that.
And it seems like a cultural thing because, black folk, for years now, we have, seen the possibilities of getting into, rap and hip hop and all that stuff. And you can even go on into jazz, there are a bunch of artists out there doing that these days, but we just aren't quite there with the classical. And again, sometimes I feel like, they're right in a way. I mean, what connection should they have to this music? I mean, despite the fact that it was all black, an all black orchestra, a black conductor, a black piano soloist at that performance. At the end of the day, we were playing Rachmaninoff. So what does that mean? I mean, what can we really say about a little black boy or a little black girl not being interested in something that at the end of the day doesn't have a lot to do with them?
I mean, I remember looking at that performance, and at first I was very irritated. I was like, this is so embarrassing. Like, these are our youth acting this way. And I was like, no, someone failed these kids, because
Right.
you can't just bring them to a classical music performance, and that's not fair. I don't know what went into that whole thing. I don't know who they were. I don't know what school they came from, what summer program they were at, but you can't just bring kids to a classical music performance and be like, these are black musicians and a black conductor and a black soloist, and you should appreciate this. Especially they have no context of, and they're not dumb. They know what a violin is.
Of
They know what an
course, yeah.
orchestra is. They know whatever, but it's like they know a conductor stands up there. They know a soloist. Like, kids know these things. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, you can't just expect them to appreciate this. And they weren't prepared for that. So they don't know how to sit in a concert hall and listen to music, and why do you have to be quiet when you listen to it, and what does this even mean, and why is it so long, and why is there 3 movements, and why don't we clap in between? Like, who prepared you for this, and what do you listen for?
Yeah.
And why is this? Why are black musicians doing this so important? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I remember telling Dalanie a couple of days ago, when I taught public school briefly before I went to Eastman.
Oh, no, you did.
Anyway, I taught public school briefly in a very I wouldn't say it was impoverished, but I've never in a context I've taught orchestra before.
Yeah.
I had my class was half white, half black down the middle. I've never seen so many black students. And my first period class was at high school, the beginning orchestra or whatever. Well, they played, never mind. And they were like intermediate orchestra. And I had one student that gave me a lot of trouble. Now, if anyone knows my teacher personality, that didn't really bother me because, I mean, we could go there.
Miss Brown don't play.
But at the end of the day, whatever, he still gave me trouble. And when I put my resignation in, when I was going to Eastman, he was like, man, I never had a black teacher before. And I'm like, and you cut up in my class this much.
See,
and you probably would never have another black orchestra teacher.
Right.
And it's like, but kids they're not there. Someone has to bring them there. You know what I'm saying? Like, some kids might be like, oh, you black, you teach orchestra? And some kids are like, so the orchestra boring, I don't want to be here. My mom making me be here. My counselor making me be here. Like, kids have to be brought there. You know, so you put them in this space and, like, why are they at Eastman and why there's so many people here and what are these black people doing up there? And, you know, it's just like, that's why that happened. You know, you could be like, this piece is by Rachmaninoff and you could listen for this. And, like, you hear the bassoon do that thing. Like, you don't have to just listen right here. The violins are doing this thing and the soloist, like, is taking this melody and he's going to play it first and then he's going to elaborate on it.
Yeah.
And these are things you could have done. And, like, that might have happened anyway. You know what I'm saying?
That's
but
true.
something tells me that, like, they don't know why this is important. You know, you have to be told that. You know, like, kids were explaining, like, Barack Obama, like, they grew up in whatever this country is, and so they knew that Barack Obama being president, that's a big deal.
Right.
You know,
right.
That you have to treat these things. You take them to ballet. You take them to. They have a black teacher. You take them to the orchestra hall. It's like the same thing. Why is this important? You know, so that's why. That's at first I was disappointed, and I was like, nah, something went wrong.
Well, I'm gonna flip that question back on y'all. Why is classical music important to you?
Whoa. What a doozy. Okay. Honestly, I feel like the most special classical music experiences that I've had have been intertwined with race and, like, my blackness. So it's like, I know you said earlier, like, a lot of people think, well, classical music, you know, the music transcends all of that and it's above all of that. That doesn't matter, whatever. And when I tell you, okay, so I stay in Tchaikovsky. And when I
You stand for Tchaikovsky? Okay.
Oh my goodness. Nobody even touched his bass melodies besides Brahms, and his dad was a bass player, so that's why he knew how to do that. Because no one was writing bass parts like that. Nobody was. But anyway, I get all these goosebumps and all these feelings, like, you know, when you're playing something that you really, really love with Tchaikovsky. However, like, even though a white composer can still do that for me, you already know my favorite concert every single year is Martin Luther King Day Inner City Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles, because the founder and executive director, Mr. Dickerson, Charles Dickerson.
Yeah, shout out to Chuck.
Oh my God, he's done so much for me. I love him. But he wrote a piece called "I Have a Dream," and it's Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, and it's set to music for symphony orchestra and chorus. And it is, like, the most powerful thing ever. Like, and it's usually all black musicians playing it. And so, like, those are the types of experiences of, like, connecting two parts of myself that are not really, like, or I guess are perceived not to be compatible.
Right.
And intertwining them so, like, cohesively is what really makes classical music important to me, because I know that it can take more forms than, like, people think it can.
Right.
It doesn't have to be this one cookie cutter thing. You know, you can use classical music to do all kinds of different things, just like our podcast. Like, that's a way, like, of looking at classical music that a lot of people don't. So it's sort of just showing the flexibility and the versatility of it is what makes it important to me.
What about you, Katie? Like, why is classical music important to you? Why is this something you want to do?
Well, I would say, like, the viola, like, when I play the viola, like, I feel the most like myself.
And real quick, shout out to all the viola players, because
listen, alto class, stand up.
because every time, like, I'm getting online, you know, looking for a nice joke or something for my radio show, it's always viola jokes, and I'd be so done. I'd be like, why?
Listen, it's not funny.
Come
First
on,
of all, you'll be nothing without us. Well, no thing. What's a sandwich without the middle? It's bread.
I love bread. You can't say that to me because I literally eat bread by itself.
It doesn't like, it's like peanut butter and jelly. It's like, I want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but I want no viola. Okay, you're gonna get 2 slices of bread. Like, you are nothing without the viola. So it's like,
shout out to viola.
And no. Like,
and we share a piece of music by Weber, the Hungarian Andante and Rondo.
Did he write that for bassoon?
He wrote that for viola, but I think his brother, Weber, his brother played bassoon, and his brother was like, "Man, let me play that, man." And now it's like
man.
more of a bassoon piece, you know.
Well, but listen,
But
like,
anyway,
you know, I stand bassoon because we always in the orchestra to give out. We might have,
Yep.
we might. I mean, and also shout out to the bassoon because that whole F sharp to G thing y'all got going on.
Oh, you took methods or something.
But listen, I was like,
See, I didn't even know
so I got to do all this to change one little note.
Yep.
I know. It's a lot. So
Yep.
what's it?
And don't even try to trill that junk.
Do you use a trill key? How do you do that?
You
gotta-
your
you
best.
gotta-
You do your best. But anyway, I interrupted you. So Katie, why do you want to do classical music? Why is classical music important?
When I play the viol, I feel most like myself. So I want to do whatever I can do to always feel like that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, and it gets hard because like you start off real hopeful and then you get into it, and it's like it's auditions, it's juries, it's like, and when it gets like too overwhelming, I'll be like, if I play Mendelssohn one more time, it's like I just step back and be like, why do I like this? And it's like, I love it. You know, I feel like when you get up and you play your piece, you feel real confident. You feel like invincible.
Right.
You know, and it's like I love that feeling. That's the only thing that I do that I feel like that. Like I feel like I could take over the world. You know,
Yeah.
playing this little Brahms sonata. You know, and it's like there's no other feeling like it. I have to do this.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I'm just, you know, experiencing the music. Like I'm really meeting the music. And, you know, even beyond classical, you know, something I like to do on my Instagram is when I hear a song that I think is dope, sometimes I'll just get at my keyboard or get out my guitar and just like kind of play that song because I feel like I'm like really experiencing, you know, what that artist or what that composer had in mind. And classical music is like one of the more intricate, you know, ways to do that because, you know, you got all these, you know, you got the strings, winds, percussion, and then within that, everybody has their particular part and how it weaves in and out together, you know, who missing a note, who ain't, you know. I know y'all don't be missing no notes, so.
Ooh, next question.
Meanwhile, my teacher tuned into this. He gonna be like, "Well,
Right, my teacher gonna be like, so you doing another thing but practicing, huh?
right."
Well, thank y'all so much for coming to talk with me.
Thank you for having us.
Plug your podcast again. Tell us how we can listen to it and all that.
So we're Classically Black Podcast.
Classically Black.
Classically Black Podcast. You can follow us on IG, Facebook, Twitter at Classically Black Podcast. You can listen wherever you listen to podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, Google Play, at Classically Black Podcast. We release every Monday.
Dope. Thanks again.
Thank you for having us.
I love their laugh.
And you are, you know, one of their newest fans, right? You
That's
listen
right.
every week.
That's right.
Are there any particular episodes that you would like to suggest to anyone?
The nice thing about this podcast is you can jump in anywhere.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not episodic. You can go to anyone and they're talking about something new. No, I would just started at ground zero.
Yeah,
for me and just listen to it. If you're looking for real, honest to goodness, like almost eavesdropping in on what it's like to be not only a classical musician in school, but a black woman in school, then this is a great place to start. And they also are up to speed on all the pop music, the hip hop, the rap. It's all in there.
Yeah, and it was really great talking with them. So that was the first interview I recorded while at the Sphinx Conference. The second of three that you'll hear next time is my conversation with Brandon Kofer. He is a collaborative pianist who lives in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we talk about what it's like to be a collaborative pianist, his relationship.
We're going to talk about why it's called a collaborative pianist.
Yep, and you know his relationship with classical versus jazz versus gospel versus other genres. It's going to be a really great conversation, and I can't wait to share that with y'all.
It's coming up next time on TRILLOQUY.
Bye.
Bye.